Welcome to the Reclaim Leader podcast. I'm Jason Tucker.
And I'm Jesse Skiffington.
We're two pastors in the trenches who are passionate about church health for greater gospel impact.
We share the ups and downs of ministry, strategies that worked for us,
and some that didn't.
Best practices and practical tools for church leadership.
The goal, to help all of our churches flourish. Let's get started.
See another sunrise, sing a little song.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reclaim Leader podcast. It is so good to be here with you again. We are just cruising toward the fall. I feel like it always sneaks up on you. It's like, oh, we're in summer, and then all of a sudden, wait a minute. We're starting to wind up the summer, and kids, fall sports, high school sports are getting back started again. Right now, my son has started full pads high school football, and it feels like the fall's here already, Jesse. I don't know. We got more summer to squeeze out.
That's right. I don't know. Are you a guy that by the time summer gets toward the end, you can't wait for fall to start?
Yes.
Or okay, so you're ready. For some folks, they're like, "Oh man, how did it go by so quickly?" And it depends on the year for me. Somewhere in between, probably. But it is this time of year where I start to think. I start to get excited about, anticipate, and start to look forward to some of the things we're going to be doing in the fall, and kind of getting back into the rhythm and routine of life. And if you have kids at home and school and all those things, everything kind of falls back into more of a routine. And so I do look forward to that. I also like fall because I'm a huge college football fan. And so it's like, go watch the Huskies at Husky Stadium and just to get to enjoy some of that too.
You have season tickets, don't you?
I do. Yeah.
Look at you.
Yeah.
You're all in.
We're kind of all in. Yeah. It's something I enjoy. Well, it works really well because it's on Saturdays. So,
yeah.
Well,
that's one of the things we're already thinking about, because my son wants to play football in college, and no matter where he goes, I'm already thinking, okay, how are we going to flip our schedule around so that we can go see him on? I'm so glad it's on Saturday.
You start working Mondays and take Friday, Saturday off.
That's right.
You can. I like it. Well, is it mean it's an idol in my life if I looked ahead at the Huskies game schedule to plan some fall events? Is that a problem?
I'd rather we don't ask that question. Okay.
I would rather not have that answer to that question be public anyway. So let's just go.
Moving on. But listen, fall is coming, and this is a great time to just start at least thinking about it, or even as you were joking before we hit record, the Office Space thing, the plan to plan.
Yeah.
But how do we plan to plan as we get ready?
You gotta have a plan to plan, because if you don't have a plan to plan, no planning will happen. So as much as we make fun of that, you gotta set aside time, hopefully more in the meat of the, kind of the middle of summer, to plan for the fall. But really creating a rhythm, a planning rhythm, is so crucially important. And we're talking about the fall specifically today. How do we plan for the fall? What are some key things that we want to include in our fall in order to kind of move the mission forward and all that stuff? But for me, a lot of times, I know you and I have talked a lot about this, but when for me, it's like right around VBS time that my mind begins to look ahead towards September. And it's like, oh, that's coming soon. And maybe there's a little bit of freedom in my creativity in the summer months for whatever reason to think through the fall. And I know pastors who go away on retreat to think through, the next year, maybe the next 6 months. And so, but having a plan to plan is really crucially important, as much as we might make fun of that. Like you got to carve out time to look ahead and think ahead, because all the things you do are going to be so much more successful when they're well thought out and have a good long kind of run up to them. And I would say also a good thorough plan also gives you a lot of flexibility if you need it, because you know far enough in advance and you go, you know what, I don't think that sermon that I thought was going to work is going to work, and I'm going to do something different. So we just want to get out ahead of our work is what this comes down to.
Yeah, you could always change the plan, but it's a lot easier when you have something in place.
Yeah, you're tweaking a plan or changing a part of the plan rather than making it up on the fly. And everything from communication to getting people engaged and involved to creating great experiences, all of that is going to be made better when you plan ahead.
Yeah.
And speaking from someone who I've gone through rhythms where I'm way further ahead with our team and planning, and the times when we've been closer to kind of week to week, I think all of us coming out of the pandemic, our planning horizon kind of compressed a little bit. And man, we had to get that discipline back to plan further ahead. So let's talk fall planning. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, that's good
Okay.
because planning is so important. I just a real quick um, story is, this summer in July, we decided, we're kind of preaching through some discipleship things, but also each of the 4 Sundays making a different ask that the
Mhm.
congregation step up for the fall,
Okay.
whether it's volunteering Sunday school or as we're changing our worship times around, picking a
Mhm.
service for 4 months, saying we're going to commit to that service, so on and so forth. And I had the idea about a week and a half before the
Mhm.
sermon started that we
Yeah.
wanted to get t-shirts.
Yeah.
Man, was that stressful because I had completely not planned that until the last minute.
Yeah. But
It
if
would
you
have been a
hadn't
lot better.
planned, if all the other stuff hadn't been planned, that one new idea would have been impossible, right?
Exactly right.
But because you planned ahead, a last minute idea becomes possible. Did you pull it off? Did it work?
We did. Yeah, we
Yeah.
did.
So, but if you were just coming up with everything, then that would have been a no-go. There's no
Yeah.
way, right? So I love that you mentioned that because longer term planning does create more opportunity for creativity and fine tuning. And then maybe you call that t-shirt as kind of up leveling it and going, oh, it went from good to really great. Or
Yeah.
from, yeah, that's pretty good to like, wow, that was super meaningful and powerful. So
And by the way, we've never done that. So it's not like we do that every sermon series,
you do a t-shirt every sermon series. That's incredible. What kind of budget does that take? How do we get, no.
Yeah. So
I
no,
love
we
it.
don't, but
So,
it was a special thing for
yeah,
church
but it
unity that
does
we wanted.
when you plan ahead. So we're beating this point up a little bit on purpose. Plan to plan. If you're not planning further ahead, get that discipline going. It's going to set you up for success, whether you're a small church or a big church or whatever. And just do it. And it's never too late to start planning. So if you're like, well, I didn't really plan, I got my next couple of weeks laid out, well, use this as an opportunity now. Look ahead, go all the way through to whatever the horizon that you want to set, say the next 5 months, 6 months, 3 months, whatever, and just start backfilling stuff. So we're going to walk through 5 keys. I'm sure there are others, and I'm not the master at planning. I know it's important. I like to do it, but I often plan by inspiration. So I got to find that right time to do it. And then I just go for it because I know that window's there. But the first key that I want us to think about, Jason, is when you're planning, pick an event horizon. Like pick, what is the end date that you want to backfill from? And just look
Yeah.
out ahead. So when I think of the fall, I don't end it in December. I think of the fall as through January. Even though January is connected into the next year and will be included in the planning for the new year, I include it in the fall planning because we want to connect our December sermon series into January and have our Christmas Eve services and the things that we do around Christmas time have natural inputs into what we're going to do next in January. So that's for us. We kind of bring January, at least a picture of it or a snapshot, maybe not detailed planning, but we bring that into our fall just because it's going to help us keep track of what we want to do with our December. So pick your horizon. How far out do you guys go? You guys are pretty accomplished. You're probably 2 years ahead.
No, we are not. But no, I think we do a fairly good job of getting out ahead, at least when we're thinking about events and all those things we're doing. I mean, it's usually around this time that we're looking at what are all the things we're doing this fall.
Yeah.
There are things that we've had on the calendar for a year because we know that we're going to do them. We figured out the date and all of that. So that helps. It helps because if you sort of know, where the roadmap is leading you, it helps you figure out the stops.
That's right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So you kind of pick, and a lot of times it works to kind of go quarter by quarter, right? And you're more detailed planning. You might have some ideas for 6 months from now, and maybe some key events that are annual kinds of things, but a lot of times a quarter by quarter planning basis. And so you want to start your planning in the quarter before, maybe early on, even in the summer months, and begin to start looking ahead and then fill it in. And so the first thing is just kind of pick your time horizon. Where are you going to plan back from? And then as you're doing that, you want to start to let your team know that right now we're in planning phase. So I want you to be thinking about key dates, key events, things that you plan to be doing so that we can bring all those pieces together on this time horizon. So everything you're going to be doing through December or through maybe January, probably December for most of your team, we're going to bring all that together so that we can create a master calendar, make sure we're all on the same page and not stepping on each other's toes and all that kind of thing. So first thing, pick your time horizon and work back from there. And then do what you suggested. Number 2 here is just start filling in events, annual events, that you know are coming and maybe even know the dates. And once you kind of have those outlined, you'll be able to look at that and go, okay, here's some opportunities for us to maybe do something new, a new event or a new whatever that you want to try. But saving space or saving the dates for the key stuff that are kind of the tried and true things, I think is important. So I'm sure for you guys, Tower Hill Christmas is already on the calendar, just a guess.
Yeah.
Probably your Veterans Day thing is already on the calendar. And we're not going to let other things, new things, encroach on those tried and true things or those annual commitments. And so for us, similarly, we have a few things every year. Trunk or treat. That's I don't know why that gets the first priority, but it does, and it's the thing that we plan. We got our campfire and Christmas carols thing that's already on there, and then our Christmas jazz is every second Sunday of December is Christmas jazz with Michael Powers. It's an awesome event. So those are things that get those date slots. And then with our team, we kind of look at it and go, okay, what would we want to try? And I know for you guys, isn't the Veterans Day thing kind of a newer thing for you?
Yeah.
The last couple of years. And so maybe talk us through that. You guys kind of laid out the fall and noticed here's an opportunity or a spot somewhere where maybe we could do something.
Yeah. So it was actually born of an event that we canceled. Okay. Which was every year we would do a 4th of July event. And what we found was it was really hard to maintain it because it was right after VBS, and it was harder and harder to get people to pull it off, and the quality was sort of going down. And we had to manufacture energy for it, which is tough. And so it was decided kind of all across the board, we like what this event does. Especially our favorite part was that it honored all the folks who served in each military branch, and they would play the theme song and they would stand up. Honestly, sometimes it's like there's not a dry eye in the house. It's a really emotional moment. And so we thought, well, if it doesn't work around the 4th of July, what if we turned it into a Veterans Day thing? And we noticed that we had room right around Veterans Day to pull that off. And so that's how we ended up doing it there. So one of it was you kind of see the need and you're like, oh, wait a minute. We do have a natural gap in what we do in November. So that kind of works for us.
Yeah. And again, as you're thinking about planning like that, I don't know what other things you have in November, but you want to be careful not to overcrowd your events calendar. We're talking like church-wide event stuff.
Yeah.
Because can you pull it off well? And, for us, it's like, okay, we could probably do one good event, church-wide event outside of Sundays and all the other things that are going on all the time. We can probably pull one off a month.
Yeah.
And probably not too many more than that. And if we try to, then what we're going to become is an event service. Like we're just going to be running events all the time. So for us, it's like picking one thing or trying to think of one thing a month that we can do that kind of brings the community together outside of the normal rhythm of the church. So, fall kickoff is a good example of that. October trunk or treat is a good example of that for us. And then in November, we have a season of generosity event that we do to support local organizations. And then Christmas, we do a couple things in December, but we're trying not to overpopulate our calendar either with those things.
Well, what you're saying is an incredibly important point, that the advantage to planning out your big events ahead of time is to make sure you are not killing your staff or asking so much of your congregation that you have all these different programs that are competing for resources and time and attention. Yeah. And it's making sure that you have a sustainable pace and an effective pace. Remember, it's not just about programs. We always talk about pathways. How is each of them a step toward discipleship? Right. And you can't really think that way if you're just inundated with programs all the time.
Totally. And sometimes for a church, I would say it may even be one good thing a quarter. For a while there, we were doing what we called Life Together Sundays. This was before the pandemic. And we would bring the whole church together on a fifth Sunday. And we would just do a giant church party, essentially. We would worship together and have kids and do a kind of a potluck fellowship event after church. But it was once a quarter that we could pull that off. And people were like, we should do this every month or every week. And I'm like, then you're in charge, right? Because good luck, right? So pick a rhythm that works for you. And you brought up something else related to annual events or maybe even bring in a new events, kind of look at your calendar, where's the gap, where would fit. But also what you guys did was you evaluated a current event and said, is this still working the way that we would hope it would for the mission? And the answer for the July 4th version was no, not anymore. And you said something that's so important. We've mentioned this a bunch of times on the podcast, but when you find yourself manufacturing energy for an event, meaning it's hard to find volunteers, you're starting to wonder if this is the best use of the resources, the financial stuff, you personally are not feeling excited or motivated by it, and you kind of, every time the time gets near and you start to walk up to people to ask for help, they start to turn and walk away as quickly as they can. It might be time for that thing to go away and to give way to something else. And I would say bringing meaningful events to a close, that is really hard. But if you can think in terms of what will we do instead or in place of it, it can help people to let go and then move on to what's next as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So really crucial. So pick your horizon, fill in the key dates of big events or church-wide things. Maybe there's room for something you want to try new and can generate excitement around that. And then from there, I like to kind of go in again before the total rhythm of week-to-week stuff's going on and think about, what am I doing to develop leadership? So we do a fall staff and session leadership retreat. And by leadership retreat, I mean we spend 3 hours together on a Saturday morning. Okay, so for those of you that thought we fly
retreats
to Hawaii,
are loosely defined. That's right.
Yeah, it's a retreat, but really there's a core commitment that I have, that our session and our staff or key volunteers, if you're not a staff church, they're in lockstep. They have good relationships, and I don't ever want our session and our staff team or our key volunteers to be at odds with each other. And if you don't bring them into relationship, and they have different functions and they do their roles, but you want great relationships and a shared sense of the vision and mission.
Yeah.
And so that's what we use our fall leadership retreat for. And a lot of it's relational time. And then we do some strategic thinking and planning and have lunch together, and then we go home. So it's not crazy, but I got to save the date for that because it'll get crowded out by other things. Yeah. Especially by other people's plans for their own lives. So I got to plan their life before they plan their life.
Well, this is really important because one of the things that I'm always trying to make sure doesn't happen is I don't want a staff member or an elder to be surprised by our plans.
Totally.
To somehow not know what we were doing. So communication, getting everybody on the same page is so important. And it doesn't take much. It may just take a couple of hours, or it may take just one really purposeful and focused meeting to make sure that everybody understands what's going on in this next season of ministry. And I think one of the things that helps rally everybody is to say, what are we trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
What do we as a church, what do we feel God is calling us to do specifically, not just, to make disciples and the Great Commission, which is what we're called to do, but specifically, what does that look like in your own context for this particular ministry season, this next September to December, if you will? What do we feel like God's really calling us to do? Maybe it's to lean more in on cultivating small groups, or maybe it's more on outreach or evangelism, or whatever that looks like. I think it's good to ask that question together so that whatever you decide, you feel like everybody's in.
Yeah. And I think part of the planning that you're talking about here too is not just events and the things that we're going to do, but from a thematic sense, and I remember for a while, I don't know if you guys are still doing this, but we've kind of gone times where we do this more and then less. It's sort of like a spiritual theme for the quarter, or sometimes a spiritual theme for the month. And maybe we're focusing on fellowship and connection this month with each other, and then on personal discipleship next month, or, stewardship in a month, so you can kind of create some thematic things too. What are the areas of focus that we want to make sure are represented in this season of ministry? So raising that point is a good one. And that's part of that strategic thinking aspect of your planning. So pick a horizon, pick a season, plan from there, get your key dates and events on there, make sure it's not overcrowded, and then get some of the strategic thinking aspects of your team on that calendar as well. It's a save the date thing. because it'll fill up. And if you don't pick the date, somebody's going to pick a day when the Huskies are playing against Ohio State at home. So you don't want that to happen. Okay. So, and then for us, this is just how we kind of tackle it. We bring our key ministry leaders, it's mostly our staff team, together, and we just get all of each other's dates on the calendar.
Yeah.
So even times like when you're going to be away on vacation, and when does youth ministry kick off, and when is the children's stuff happening, and it's just making sure that we get all of those things captured. So each of our teams and staff kind of come up with their own list of dates, and then we kind of check for conflicts, for continuity, make sure that we're more or less, on the same page about what's going to happen and why. And that's one of those meetings that I wouldn't call it my most favorite meeting of the year, but you just kind of hammer through it so that you are all on the same page. And there's a huge benefit to that. Now we have a resource that we can draw from together. Our key leaders can know about it, and we can actually begin to build some excitement for our congregation off of that thing as well. So how do you guys do your collective scheduling? Do you just get together, master calendar it, and hammer it out? Or
yeah, we look at the calendar every time we meet. So there's a portion of our either leadership meetings or all staff meetings where we're just going through, these are the events coming up.
Yep.
Does anybody have anything else, or is there a request to do something else, or let's talk about it, let's go through.
Yeah.
We have a system where it's just a it's not a Google form. I forget what it is. It might be a Jot form, but it's a request for time off. So then staff, they see everybody's dates they're away. I highlight them to make sure that we're not all away on the same date. It still happens sometimes.
It does. Yeah, sure does.
But it's just kind of a good visual to have. We have it on our agenda page. So for our staff meetings, we've got all the calendar dates, our programming dates, and we just talk through it. Any changes, everybody aware what's going on, just to make sure like we're all
How
on the same.
far out do you go with that in your planning?
3 months.
Yeah. So that's a good window, right? And then what you do with that, if it's 3 months at any given point, by the time you go 3 months from now, you're going to be 3 months ahead. So you kind of just have a rolling calendaring deal. And that's a great way to approach it. So for our team, we have a similar rhythm. It's more of what we call a 6 weeks out look, and then kind of a master calendaring meeting that we do, about semi-annually to really hammer out all the things. But creating a predictable plan to plan sets your team up for success. They know that this is when these things are going to get captured, when I can mention them, and so there's a kind of reliability factor there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. So get your key leaders planning meeting, figure out your strategy for that, whether that's a kind of a rolling basis kind of thing or a longer term vision kind of thing. I would suggest doing some version of both would be good. And so, take a look at that. And then the last one is, once you kind of have that master calendar and you get a sense of what the themes are for the fall and the key dates and events, that's when you, I would say it's an opportunity to show your work to the congregation and get everybody excited. And I don't think you need to share every detail and on everything, but you can point to key events, you can save the date kind of thing. And we do that through a fall postcard mailer that we do. Super simple. It kind of has key dates and highlights on there. Often for ongoing ministries, it's the starting date for that ministry. Youth ministry fall is going to kick off on XYZ date. And then we send that out. And then often we'll kind of have an accompanying kind of preview guide for folks that want a little more detail on what things are going to look like. So we've done all the work. We might as well share it with everybody and get everybody excited with us. Yeah. So how do you guys get the word out once you kind of have your plan for a season?
Yeah, I think it's sort of organically. I don't know that we share the big picture. But we do share kind of what's coming up and save the dates. We give that out. And we hey, get excited. We're getting ready to do this, whatever that is. But I think one of the real advantages to doing this, again, it's sort of similar to that when we had the t-shirts made. It's if you're planning out, you could sort of see where the opportunities are to pivot even within that structure. So for example, we had a Sunday and I'm like, we're going to talk about reaching the next generation. Wouldn't it be cool if we had our mission partner, who's our intervarsity leader at Monmouth University, who we just had her on, Allison, we just had her on the podcast a couple episodes ago. So wouldn't it be cool if we got her to come to church and be there, introduce herself, be available, since we're talking about helping the next generation in their faith. And, looking at the calendar, we're like, oh, this is the date that would work because we know everything else going on. We know there's room for that. And I don't think we would know if there was room for it if we hadn't
unless you kind of have a picture of it, right? And for us, there's some other kind of detailed planning that we've done to introduce kind of a pattern that's predictable, so we know what's coming and we can be creative ahead of time. And that's where that 6-3-1 model really works for us. But every first Sunday we know is Communion Sunday, so we're not going to do a ministry highlight probably that day on top of that. But second Sundays we highlight an internal ministry of the church every month. Second Sunday is tell us about kids ministry, tell us about the bike shop, tell us about what happened with the youth on their retreat or whatever. And so that's a predictable plan, but then there's kind of room for creativity. Third Sundays are our stewardship, giving thanks for being a part of God's work, offering recognition Sunday. And then fourth Sunday is external ministry highlight. We bring in a mission partner or we highlight an external ministry partner and just say, hey, look what we get to do in partnership with these folks. So planning ahead, creating rhythms, thinking key events. But the further you're out in your planning, the more that I would say there's room for the Holy Spirit and creativity to come in and go, what would make this incredible if we had t-shirts? Or, hey, it would be awesome if we fill in the blank. We had this opportunity this last week for an illustration, and it was for people to write down things that they're worried about and feeling uncertain about on an index card. Well, we had thought about it far enough in advance to purchase blacklight pens and write "God will provide" on each one in invisible ink. So we're talking about hundreds of index cards that had invisible ink that said God will provide on them, and enough pens for everybody to have a blacklight in church. So when we prayed, Lord, here's what I'm feeling uncertain about or anxious about, at the end of the prayer, everybody got to turn on their blacklight and see God will provide. So but that was kind of an ad that we brought in later because we had planned far enough ahead to know the theme and know an illustration that we were looking for. So you and I could go on and on about this.
I love it. I got a lot of questions though. What happened to the blacklight pens? Like you just
everybody got to take them home.
Oh,
they were just little pieces. Yeah. And it was cool. It was fun. And I'm sure, anyway, people are like rolling their eyes, some of them probably, but for a lot of people, awesome. They just got into it. It was fun. It's part of our VBS celebration event. So it fit with it kind of kids ministry vibe. But anyway, so the further you plan, the more creativity you can have, but also as a pastor, the further you plan, if you include your sermon prep and thinking in that, at least, even if it's not in detail, just a picture of where you're going to go, I think it helps you to feel less anxious week to week. You kind of know where you're going, what's coming up, and it's just one less thing to have to stress and worry about, and you can focus on ministry right in front of you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for bringing up this topic, Jesse. This is so important, and it's time to take a look at the fall, and because once you get in it, it's like it's 100 miles an hour. It's
It's kind of time actually to start looking January through Easter too, and I'm like,
right. I know, crazy. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for listening. I hope this is helpful to you. Drop us a line anytime, Jason or Jesse at reclaimleader.com. It's been good the last couple of weeks, just doing some super, super practical things, helping as we get ready for the fall, thinking about planning, thinking about resources or kind of gear that we need to get, or maybe software we want to try, or whatever that looks like. And I pray that all of this, the whole point of this is for us to share the gospel in an effective way, and to do it in such a way that that we can afford and sustain. And I think that's the real trick in church today. How do we do it knowing that we do have limited budget, we have volunteer leaders, we have, we're not just a business, but how do we do some of these things, especially around communication and planning, and how do we do it well? So I think, thank you for bringing this one up today.
Yeah, I'm sure there are folks that are way better at this and way ahead of us on this, but it's just it's a reminder as much to us as to everybody else listening in that we need to be thinking ahead, and that especially for those of us, I grew up with a dad who was a pastor. I've shared some of his story before, and it's a very small town. He often had 2 other jobs that he was working at any given time. So he's kind of a tent making ministry kind of deal for a lot of the time. And there wasn't a lot of time for this kind of work. And so it often was a Saturday writing a sermon and maybe an event that the church could pull off or something. And once I had the opportunity to work full time in a church as a pastor, my commitment was I never want to take that for granted.
Yeah.
And I think when we are in ministry and paid to be here at a full-time kind of way, these are the kinds of things that are part of our stewardship.
Yeah.
Thinking longer term, planning ahead, being out ahead so that we can be really effective in our work. So that's a little bit kind of a serious note there, but truly it's a crucial part of our leadership. And I encourage you to lean into it and continue to do that great work of planning ahead.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Please share this podcast. We encourage you to share it with your colleagues. And the thing that we know that keeps us going is that ministry is hard. It is so much better when we do it together. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.